The news broke like a sudden storm on a calm sea. It was a Tuesday evening, January 3rd, 2026. Television screens across the Philippines flickered with an urgent alert. Breaking news. Filipino fishing boat attacked by China Coast Guard near Scarborough Shoal. The first images were grainy, shot from a trembling hand on a mobile phone, a massive white vessel looming over a tiny Filipino fishing boat. The footage was chaotic, shouting, roaring engines, and the terrifying sound of water striking wood. For millions of Filipinos, the scene was both shocking and sickeningly familiar. The West Philippine Sea, a source of livelihood for generations, had once again become a stage for conflict. News anchors spoke in grave tones, reading unconfirmed reports of injuries, of fishermen struggling in turbulent waters. The names of the crew were not yet known, but their plight resonated deeply. They were fathers, sons, and husbands who had simply gone to sea to earn a living. Now, they were at the center of an international incident, their small vessel a symbol of a much larger struggle. The FB Amihan, with its crew of 10, had been deliberately targeted. They were not armed. They were fishermen, armed only with nets and hope. The attack was unprovoked, a brutal display of power in a contested sea. The Philippine Coast Guard confirmed they were attempting to make contact with the distressed vessel. Government officials condemned the act in the strongest possible terms. The raw footage, played on a loop, captured the nation's attention. The Chinese ship, a modern behemoth, dwarfed the humble Amihan, using its water cannon with ferocity meant to intimidate and injure. The flashpoint at Scarborough Shoal was not an abstract geopolitical event. It was a deeply personal tragedy unfolding in real time. Just days before, the mood aboard the FB Amihan was one of quiet optimism. The crew, led by Mang Lito, had set out from Zambales with high hopes. Scarborough Shoal, or Bajo de Mazinloc, was their traditional fishing ground, a place their fathers and grandfathers had taught them about. They knew the risks, stories of Chinese vessels, shadowing, intimidation. But necessity drove them onward. Fish stocks closer to shore had dwindled. They sailed under the vast Philippine sky, a small band of brothers united by their trade. They shared meals, laughter, and dreams of a good catch. They were not looking for trouble, just trying to make a living. The first sign of trouble appeared as a small dot on the horizon, growing into the imposing China Coast Guard vessel 5305. The vessel began to circle them, a show of force designed to herd them away. Mang Lito tried to remain calm, instructing his crew to continue their work. The atmosphere shifted from cautious optimism to dread as the Chinese vessel closed in. Its engines rocked the small boat violently. Over a loudspeaker, a voice boomed in a language they did not understand, a warning, an order to leave. The sky, once a symbol of opportunity, now felt like a closing trap. Their simple fishing trip had just turned into a terrifying confrontation with a global superpower. The first blast of water hit the FB Amihan with the force of a physical blow. The crew, caught by surprise, were thrown across the deck as nets and gear were swept away. The water was a high-pressure jet, powerful enough to tear wood and break bone. Mang Lito watched in horror as his men were struck and injured. The attack was relentless, the Chinese vessel maneuvering with cold precision. The fishermen were unarmed, their small boat offering little protection. The water cannon swept across the deck, seeking to injure and incapacitate. The force splintered the cabin, flooded the engine, and left the crew huddled together, praying for the attack to stop. The chaos felt endless as the Amihan was systematically dismantled. The fishermen were battered, their vessel groaning under the strain. In those moments, they thought only of survival and their families. The struggle was no longer about geopolitics, it was about staying alive. When the water cannons finally ceased, silence descended, broken only by the groaning of damaged wood and the cries of the injured. The deck was a scene of devastation. Debris, shattered equipment, and pools of seawater. The crew, drenched and shivering, assessed their injuries, bruised ribs, bleeding wounds, a dislocated shoulder. They were fishermen, not soldiers, yet they bore the wounds of a one-sided battle. Their medical supplies were meager, but they tended to each other as best they could. The boat's cabin was partially destroyed, the engine flooded and dead. The China Coast Guard vessel lingered, offering no help, before disappearing over the horizon. The crew faced a new challenge: survival, adrift and wounded, hundreds of miles from home. They bailed water, tried to repair the engine, and fashioned a makeshift sail. Their physical wounds were deep, but the psychological scars were just beginning to form. Alone and adrift, they faced a long, uncertain journey home. The journey back was an agonizing ordeal. With their engine dead, the crew was at the mercy of wind and currents, their progress painfully slow. The sun beat down by day. The nights were cold and dark. Injuries worsened. Hunger and thirst gnawed at their strength. They rationed what little food and water remained. The men were haunted by the memory of the attack, flinching at every loud sound. Their camaraderie was replaced by shock and anger. After 4 grueling days adrift, a Philippine Coast Guard vessel appeared on the horizon. The sight brought the first glimmer of hope. As the Coast Guard drew alongside, the fishermen broke down in tears of relief. They were finally safe. The journey across the sea was over, but the journey to heal and to seek justice was just beginning. When the FB Amihan was towed into port, families rushed to the docks, their cries of relief mixing with sobs of anguish. The fishermen, limping and bandaged, were helped onto solid ground, their faces etched with exhaustion and trauma. News cameras captured every tearful reunion. Mang Lito, his arm in a sling, spoke simply, "We were just trying to fish. This is our sea. Why are they treating us like animals?" His plea for dignity and justice became a rallying cry. Protests erupted, hashtags trended, and the nation demanded action. The battered boat and wounded crew became a symbol of all Filipino fishermen facing harassment. The community rallied around their returning heroes, but fear and uncertainty lingered. Their trauma had become a national symbol of defiance, igniting a powerful wave of patriotic anger. Under public pressure, the Philippine government moved swiftly. The Department of Foreign Affairs issued strong protests, but this time, words were not enough. President Marcos Jr. announced a new case against China before an international tribunal, seeking accountability and reparations for the Amihan crew. The legal case focused on China's use of excessive force and failure to assist those in distress, clear violations of international law. The Philippines rallied support from allies, framing the case as a defense of freedom of navigation and the rules-based order. The fishermen's testimonies formed the core of the complaint. Filing the case was a declaration. The Philippines would not stand by while its citizens were brutalized. Manila was prepared to fight for its people in the court of international law. Beijing's response was swift and unyielding. China claimed the Filipino boat had intruded into Chinese waters and accused the Philippines of fabricating the story. State media released edited footage, omitting the violence and injuries. China dismissed the lawsuit as a political farce and refused to participate. This is part of China's broader strategy gray zone tactics to intimidate and control the South China Sea. The goal is to make it impossible for others to operate without China's permission. For Beijing, any challenge, whether a fishing boat or a lawsuit, must be met with overwhelming force and denial. The clash at Scarborough Shoal is a symptom of a larger geopolitical game. The South China Sea is a vital artery for global trade and a prize in the competition for resources. The 2016 Hague ruling rejected China's claims, affirming the rights of Filipino fishermen. But China refuses to acknowledge the ruling, creating a fundamental conflict between law and power. The West Philippine Sea has become a tinderbox, with the risk of escalation ever present. The real price is paid by ordinary people like Mang Lito and his crew, the human face of this conflict. Their bruises and broken bones are a stark reminder that territorial disputes have real, painful consequences. Lasting peace will only come when empathy, respect for law, and a genuine desire for resolution prevail.